Greetings, travelers, and welcome to Traveller RPG Headquarters. You can find our Facebook group by searching our name in the Facebook search tool or find a link in the video description below. Thanks for participating in our second annual Mayday Traveller Day event. It's a day we celebrate Traveller and all its offshoots for all the fun times it's given us. I'm your host, Frank Succardi, also known as CyborgPrime, and today I'm happy to introduce Mr. Paul Elliott of Zozer Games. Welcome, Paul.
Frank, it's a pleasure to talk to you, and I can't think of a better thing to talk about than Traveller, to be honest.
Great. Me too. So, well, let's get to it then. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from, and where'd you grow up?
I'm from Yorkshire in England, and I wanted to start with. I always wanted to be a geologist, it's like a scientist. I went through all the education. I started a university course, but it was ancient history that got me, really, and that was because of role playing, and ended up through ancient history getting a degree, started writing books, and became a writer, professional writer through that, really. But it's a role playing thing that changed my mind from being a geologist to being, well, an ancient historian, I suppose.
And how did that go?
The ancient history, well, yeah, I finished with an ancient history degree, and I thought, well, what do I do now? I couldn't be an ancient historian, really. There's no jobs in that, really. So I ended up writing books on ancient history, on cults and secret societies. And now that, again, was inspired by all my Call of Cthulhu role-playing and Lovecraft reading as well. So all the role-playing I did, it all ended up transferring into what I ended up doing with my entire life, which is quite strange. I became a writer.
Do you have a favorite science fiction book or TV show or movie that inspires you, or that you just really like? And
yeah, well, it's going to be Alien. I know that the time I was growing up in the early 80s, by then it was on TV, and that's when I was playing Traveller, and the images that I had and my group had when we were playing Traveller were alien. It was dark, it was gritty, it was grungy, and I know Mark Miller, the writer of Traveller, his inspirations were completely different. His inspirations were the sort of pulp sci-fi novels of the 50s and the early 60s, and so our inspirations were something completely different, and more visual, really. We played the game as it was, but in our heads, the vision was dark and it was gritty, and it was the cyberpunk kind of alien thing, really. Mm-hmm. And that's lasted throughout my role playing career, I think.
And so, aside from gaming, do you have any other hobbies? Like, do you enjoy sports or photography or other background skills?
Well, not again. This is strange to say. It's all rough playing related, unfortunately. To sound boring, but the history, I ended up being so interested in archaeology and history that I ended up writing the books. And as part of the research, I started to make a few things. I made a Roman shield. I made a sling, and I learned to be quite a good slinger.
Oh, cool.
Then I made some javelins and started to throw javelins, and I tried to use patterns that I'd found in Roman archaeology books that I'd seen at university. And then I thought, well, is this reenacting? This is reenacting, isn't it? It's living history. So I ended up joining a Roman reenactment group. And again, Roman reenactment, it's a lot like role-playing, to be honest. You take on a character with a place in society, and then all the things you buy or make, you create for that person, the kind of clothing you wear. It's all based on where he's from, what his status is, all his origins and everything. So again, you're creating a character, although it's not quite as detailed. Because everything you wear and everything you own and everything you use has to fit together. You can't just buy an axe and call yourself a Viking and have a sword, and it's all got to fit together with who you are and where you are and when you are. So I felt really at home. So as a Roman reenactor, I had the time of my life, when we rolled coracles and we fired catapults and we assaulted Roman forts, and we did a million things and marched across Hadrian's Wall in full kit, and the real reenactment experience, and a lot of that I put back into books. So I carried on writing books, but my experiences of reenacting and the experience of marching across country, testing all the kit out and camping in snow and foul weather and all that kind of thing, all that went back into books. And I've written books about life for a soldier on Hadrian's Wall, choosing one man at one particular time and period and explaining everything about him, how high he would have been, what colour his eyes would probably have been, the diseases he probably would have had, the clothing, the jobs he would have done, if he was married or what kind of marriage it would have been, his, the warfare experiences, all summed into one kind of book, really, for one particular man in one place at one time. And again, it's the ultimate character building study for a role player, really. That was it, I think.
That's super interesting. Now, is that a role playing group that focuses exclusively on reenacting Roman history?
No, these are hardcore Roman reenactors.
Okay.
All they do is reenact. They just reenact. They're not LARPers or anything like that. Purely, a lot of the people who are members were historians. We had a couple of archaeologists from York. We've got several were teachers, actually. Quite a few were in the teaching profession, like myself. So and they take it very seriously and invest a lot of money and tons of research. Do your own research. So it's a really rewarding thing to be involved in. You could get really deep into that. So I do less of it now, but still very interested in Victorian reenactment, Stone Age reenactment, Bronze Age, that kind of thing, Iron Age. I have a huge amount of equipment from different time periods. I really do.
That's really cool. Something I've noticed doing these interviews is a lot of people have a history, and they also have interest in things like medieval reenactments and kind of low-tech reenactment groups. So that's an interesting thread I'm seeing through our hobby.
You have things like Ren fairs, don't you? Which we don't really have here.
Mm-hmm.
Which is more a low-key, less. I don't know how to describe it, really. Less of a low-key kind of reenactment. It's not really hardcore, is it? But we don't seem to have that in Britain so much.
There's a couple of there's a few groups that do it to varying degrees. The one I participate in America, but it's a worldwide group, is the Society for Creative Anachronism. And,
that's got a RuneQuest history as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, I suppose. So they, people have varying degrees of how seriously they want to take it, and so some people will make things out of period stuff, like they'll actually make painting pigments and dyes out of the way they used to in the medieval period, or it starts with Romans and goes forward, I think, to Elizabethan times. And anyway, I don't want to get on a sidetrack about that, but I think it's interesting that a lot of people who are so into sci-fi are also into history.
Yes, it's strange. It's the twin strand with two strands, really, with me, the history and the science fiction, because with the geology and the interest in space and exploration, I never sort of lost it right through Traveller. And the two things, they didn't seem to be related, but I've kept them going ever since, really. I couldn't give up one and just for the sake of the other one. I love them both, really.
Mm-hmm.
And Traveller, at the time when I was role-playing, the early 80s, I mean, I'm over 50, just about. So it was the four big games for me, the main ones that were around at the time, Call of Cthulhu, RuneQuest, basic D&D, and Traveller. And they were the ones we played until others came onto the scene. But all of them, in their own way, had a massive impact on me, on my life. Maybe it was because I was such a bit of a geek at the time. They just burned themselves onto my soul, I think. With the RuneQuest got me into the history. I spent so much time reading about Bronze Age history to sort of work out what Glorantha was all about, that I ended up reading tons and tons of history books, and which means I got an A in my O level when I was 16 in classical studies. Then to do an A level when I ditched the geology degree. I came back to school and did an A level in ancient history, and I got just in 6 months instead of 2 years, and I passed that, and then went off to do that as a degree, and all because of RuneQuest and the reading of RuneQuest, to be honest. And then Call of Cthulhu, one of my books when I started writing them were all about secret societies. There's warrior cults and brotherhoods of fear, and then a book on historical assassins, and they were all mixing in and intertwining secret societies and magical cults, death cults, things like that. And that was all purely from playing Call of Cthulhu, really. It's quite weird.
It's cool that you draw inspiration from the such a diverse cross section of games.
Well, I suppose so, yeah. And then Traveller, that's a lot later for me. Traveller didn't have much of an influence until well into the sort of the 21st century, really. You know, when I'd written lots of history books, and I went back really to science fiction and back to Traveller, really, because I had sons, teenage sons, and I thought, well, I would love to game with them. So we started gaming Traveller, classic Traveller, the 3 books.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that's easy to learn, easy to play. You can start anywhere at any level on any place. It's wonderful. So we did that, and we rolled characters and had a blast. It was absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, they both left home, so I'm all alone now. Which is a big pity, but that got me back into the Traveller and to thinking as a Traveller GM and a Traveller referee and all things Traveller then, because my mind had switched almost to thinking in that kind of sense. And it has ever since, really, with the things that I've been writing.
So
yeah, but
go on. Mm-hmm.
Well, a big part of what I did in the 90s is I started writing my own games. I had a little group down in Canterbury, and I'd written a cyberpunk game set in Japan, and we used to play that. And then the guys, they all started making their own little games up, just a single sheet of paper, and the games they made up were set anywhere, and I made them up as well. And it was like you're lumberjacks in Canada, and you're out in the wilderness, and you see a meteorite land in the woods, about 2 miles away. And there was a simple character generation system, a simple combat system, and then there was the sort of plot on the back of the sheet of paper. And we'd all turn up and we'd create characters and we'd play that one game, just that one night. And we'd have a blast. And it was everything, every night it was something different. And I used to write all these new games, just games for fun, games to play. And a lot of them snowballed into big chunky games like Saibatsu, the cyberpunk game. And I wrote an ancient history game called Zenobia, which that really did snowball, that one. And I began to really be a game designer then, and took off all the games that I played and took bits here and bits there and changed this and changed that and adapted and created new ideas and new rules. And I joined a RPGnet, had a forum called The Art of Game Design, and I was on there every evening, talking about game theories and discussing game theories with other people, sharing different bits of rules I'd made or settings, and that really got me inspired to really dig down and start writing games seriously. And I wrote lots of games and put them out for free on websites that I had at the time. And they were all free games. They were just free. And a lot of them, they're still out there on my website now. Just free games. Just I love to write them. I love to play them. Then I love to share them. And that was fantastic. But so I think what changed things really was when I discovered RPG, DriveThruRPG, which really was like, this is my ultimate dream. It's a place you can sell games. And so then I started thinking more professionally about what I was writing, who I was writing it for, what the aim was, and really sharpen up things like production skills and things like that. I've been writing for years. I've been writing history books since the first one was a GURPS world book I wrote about 1992 or 3, I think. Mm-hmm. So I had a lot of writing skills and a lot of I thought like a writer on how to pitch to an audience and things. So DriveThruRPG, when I discovered that about 2009 or something, that changed all my attitude then. And of course, I was in the height of the Traveller then. My sons were playing then, so that's when the whole thing sort of kicked off, sort of freelance wise, and when I created sort of Zozer Games began. Really, I would say that was the start of it all.
Let's take a step back for a sec. What was the first RPG game that you played, and how did you like come to play in it?
Again, I hate to sound boring, but it was basic D&D, and it was Keep on the Borderlands, like so many other people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had a group of us friends, and we're all good friends, and we had one friend who we didn't know very well, but he always had the cool stuff. He always had new things that nobody else had, and I think his family a little bit richer than us, and he always had something different. He had the first home computer. We never had that for another five years or so, and he had this role-playing game. This game, he said, and we went round to a friend's house and we played this game, and it was like bang! It was like a light bulb that exploded. We were sat there, and it was all real. It was all incredibly real, and we were on the edge of the seats, and it was absolutely. It was so exciting to play. We were about 14, I think, 13 or 14 at the time.
Uh-huh.
And then we ran out of time, and he had to stop. And we weren't in the Caves of Chaos yet. We'd been to the keep, and we'd been around in the woods, and we'd had fights with people, and the sun was going down. And I remember distinctly, I was a barbarian with an axe, and the sun was going down. We'd found the cave entrance, and I think there were stakes with heads on outside, and it was a quite electrifying moment, and he said, we've run out of time, I've got to go home for my tea. So he went home for his tea, and we never played it again. And we talked about it at school, because he went to a different school as well. We talked about it for days afterwards. Oh God, it was so exciting. What happened next? What was going to happen? I wonder what was in the caves, and what do you think? And it was like, for days we couldn't settle the fact that we'd been left hanging, and one of the most exciting things we'd ever done before. So one of our friends went out and bought it from a local stamp collector's shop, and we sort of redid it all and carried on, and we realized then we could do anything. And then somebody bought Traveller as well, which was great, and I bought that off them straight away. So that was that experience. It was one you can't really forget.
That's what hooked you to it, was the excitement of the story unfolding and the unknown that was going to come next. Or
yes, I think so. And I think maybe if he'd got to the end of the story and we killed loads of orcs and kobolds and a troll at the end or something, and I think that if it had all gone off home, maybe I wouldn't have thought anything more of it. But because he had to stop it at a key moment, I think that's what it's the cliffhanger, isn't it? It's the cliffhanger that gets you for the next one, and I think that was the biggest cliffhanger. And he didn't make it up. I think he really needed to get home for his tea. Yeah, that's quite fortuitous, really, because we all played for years, but I think I think I'm the only one who still plays and has got really massively invested in it. Beyond I would never have thought in a million years that I would be talking to you about me and my role playing games and early role-playing experiences like this.
So do you remember your first Traveller game, or who brought it up and what you did?
Well, no, I've eradicated that from my memory because they were so embarrassing. You see, at 14, you don't know much about the real world, so D&D is fantastic. You can go around the woods and you can hack at things, and I think we were all reading Lord of the Rings, so we all knew all about that. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to the real world, it was all a bit embarrassing. So we all created these characters. We were 14. We all created characters that were 38 and 42 and older, and pretended to be rugged Starship travelers going from one crime escapade to the other. And really, we knew nothing about customs or about talking to adults, to be honest. So the guy had a machine gun, a rifle, 2 pistols, and a dagger and a bayonet, and he'd walk around and go into nightclubs with it was embarrassing. So and we couldn't believe the scale of this. I bought Deluxe Traveller, and it comes with a beautiful fold out map of the Spinward Marches. And we thought, look at that, it's fantastic. And then we were reading through the rules, and now you can jump 1 hex in a scout ship. It's 1 or 2 hexes. Yeah, 2 hexes per week.
Mm-hmm.
So we looked at it, and it's like, right, we're here. Oh, we can only go there. So that's not right. This map's too big. It can't. We must be reading the rules wrong. No, that's not right. Look how many hexes there are. That can't be right. So surely it's each subsector. So maybe surely you can jump 2 subsectors. We zoomed all over the Spinwheel Marches because we had no idea about the rules or anything like that, and we just make stuff up. But again, that's part of it, isn't it? But as you get older, all the things in travel that seem so ridiculous, they make more sense as you get older. And as you become 42 and 38 and all those old ages, you realise, the game's spot on. Really, it's for its old characters, best played by old players, I think. Really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I experienced that similar thing when I played, and looking back, it's like, why are we pushing so hard against that jump 2 limit? I mean, that's like your first level ship. Of course, it can't go. It doesn't. It doesn't go anywhere. Or just it's a hassle. But there's bigger ships, and that's something that you're supposed. Just like I know it's not a game with leveling necessarily, but if you compare it to like D&D or whatever, as you go along, you get, a magic carpet or a Pegasus and things that take you, from one place to another faster. And the same thing in Traveller, you start out with a crappy ship that, can barely fly. And then before long, you graduate to a bigger ship and a bigger ship. And then you're jumping across the subsector in 2 jumps or whatever. 3 jumps.
And people like the designers of the computer game Elite and EVE Online, I mean, that is Traveller turned into a gigantic role-playing game, really, where you just keep getting bigger and bigger ships and travel further and further and get more contacts and more and richer as well, richer.
Right.
Yeah, but at the time we were railed against swords and we railed against all kinds of things in Traveller. But now looking back at it, I see it as a time. It's a product of its age. A lot like basic D&D. After a year or 2, I hated it. I thought it was stupid. Hit points are stupid. The spellcasting limits are stupid. But looking back at it now, I appreciate it for every little detail in D&D and in Traveller that they're both created to be a game to play. The trade rules aren't there to be a realistic depiction of trade rules. They're there to inspire gaming and experiences and adventure opportunities. That's what everything is there for, and it all feeds in on itself, and it's all there to play a part in having a great adventure. And I think it all does it beautifully. Looking back, I try and find fault with some of the things, and I can't anymore. I think it does the job it does absolutely beautifully. It's not a simulation of life. It's a game to play, to provide gaming opportunities, and I think it does it really well.
I agree. So sounds like you prefer to be. Go on. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of a delay between us, so I'm trying not to step on you. Go ahead.
Yeah, even though it's in 3 tiny little books without any illustrations as well, it's the most succinct rules I've ever read that can do so much in so little space as well. And that, as a professional writer, you can't help but sit there and just admire the brevity of the whole thing and how much it can give you in such limited word count. It's just incredible. It really is.
Yes, yeah, I agree. Those 3 little books provided so many hours of entertainment for me. I mean, it's unbelievable what content can be generated from, what are they, 30 pages or something? I mean, they're pretty small.
They are, yeah. I mean, I use them even today. I mean, I gravitated towards Mongoose Traveller later because it's slightly updated a lot of things, and we switched to that. Me and my boys all switched to that. And then, of course, I made the jump from there to Cepheus Engine, the license-free version of that. But when I go away for the weekend or on holiday, I usually take the 3 books and a notebook and some dice. And then when I'm sitting there bored, I will create characters or worlds especially. I love creating worlds. I sit there. The stats are at the top of the page, and all the bottom of the rest of the page is all what I can create about that world from that string of numbers. And I can do 2 and 3 and 4 pages. make a couple of characters, create a patron. Why are these characters working for that patron? Why are they on this planet I've just created? Create a starship. It's just wonderful solo material as well. And even now, I just get the 3 books out, take them on holiday or somewhere, and use them. It's rather than read a novel, I just sit there rolling dice. I don't know what people think I'm doing, but it gives me a lot of pleasure.
Yeah, it's a way to also generate tons of content. I mean, it doesn't take long to do that. You can walk away with, many planets in, just a short period of time. And each one's a setting that you can use.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
So is that one of your favorite aspects of Traveller? Is the ability to generate specifically worlds?
It's the toolkit aspect, really.
The whole toolkit of it.
I mean, a lot of games, especially more in the last 10, 15, maybe 20 years, they give you a highly detailed rule set to work intimately with a highly detailed setting, and it's hard to. And often there's a campaign created for that setting as well that your players are going to run through. And that's great, but I love the idea of here's a toolkit. Here's how to create characters and situations. Here's a setting not too detailed. There's a lot there, but there's a lot of spaces, loads of spaces, and you can move into the spaces. You can create content in those spaces, and that's what Traveller does, I think, fantastically. An overly detailed setting, I think everything you add into a setting, it cripples your imagination just in a little bit. So I wouldn't like to role play in the Star Trek setting, for example. So much out there, so much lore and canon. There's rules, there's official regulations. There's so much there that I will be terrified of treading on toes and breaking canon. And I wouldn't enjoy it at all. I like settings with space, with blank areas, with things that you can do. So more minimally structured settings for me, I think, are a godsend. They really are.
So it sounds like you prefer to be the GM and you like to do your own settings rather than you like to roll your own, if you will, rather than use a commercial setting.
Well, yes, yeah, I do. Maybe that's because I have written some games, so I think, well, I've got an idea for a game. I've got an idea for a setting. I have created a few classic Traveller settings, and I've put them out for free. I had this idea. I had an idea for a Russian futuristic interstellar setting, and the Traveller rules could do it beautifully, absolutely, with slug firing guns and the jump rules and everything about it, the character creation rules. And it wasn't a commercial thing. It's just I had to, once it was in my head, I had to write it out and set it out. And it's only, I don't know, it's about 30 pages or something like that. And then got permission from Mark to publish it for free, and put that out. Really, I can't help it. I love creating settings for Traveller because it's so easy. Because it is just a framework. I think the Third Imperium, it sort of sidetracked a lot of people into that setting. When, to be honest, there are so many you can use. You could do so many settings. It's so flexible, and I think that's a bit of a missed trick there. That hasn't happened more, really.
One of the things I really like about about especially classic Traveller was as when I first got into it, I was a teenager, poor. I had a job, but didn't have a lot of money, and I liked the modular feature that if you wanted to have scouts, you bought the scout book. If you wanted robots, you bought the robot book. You didn't have to lay down $40 on a rule book that had a bunch of stuff in there that you weren't going to play.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. A 400-page rule book with all the characters all intimately detailed, and you hate half of them, and you're never going to use half of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I did like that idea, the modular aspect where you could have if you wanted a Scouts campaign, you bought the Scouts book and it gave you everything you needed. It gave you sort of ships and planetary survey rules and character creation rules, everything you needed. Yeah, that's a genius idea. That really, again, it fed into the toolkit idea, I suppose, didn't it, as well?
Yeah, yeah, it does. Yeah, I agree.
It did so well.
So when did you first become a gaming content creator? Like when
Well,
did you produce your first piece of what I want either commercial or non-commercial, what you would what you would consider professional level um, content?
yeah, well, so I was producing some big games. So Zaibatsu in the 90s, but it was for me really, and then Zenobia, the ancient fantasy Roman game. Again, it was a huge book. It was detailed, and it was for me, and I put it online for people to play as well. And Zenobia particularly, people liked a lot, and they always said, "You've got to produce this. I want this in print. I want this in print." But I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to go about that. But then I found DriveThru about 2009 or 10. I started writing, and it was a game called 43 AD, and it's a horror role-playing game set in Roman Britain. So the Romans arrive, and they don't realise that this is a terrifying place. Even the locals, the Iron Age tribes, they're terrified of the place. There are demons and there are monsters there, the like of which you'll see in any horror film, out in the woods, in caves, in lakes, all over the place. And their sacrifices they're there to placate these creatures. And the Romans turn up and they say, you're all moving into the cities, and they don't realise the terrifying consequences of what they're doing, and they end up having to encounter and deal with and try and survive these terrors and these horrors all over ancient Britain. And it's a really simple rule system, so it's fast. And so I've written books on ancient history, so the history is quite good, but the rules are kept minimal. I kept trying to keep them really, really short, and that's something again I got from Traveller. It's two dice. You can do everything you want with 2 dice, and nearly all the games I've ever written, it's all on 2 dice. So I can see the benefit of that. So that was the first one I published, and we had commissioned art and a commissioned cover. There was an author who wrote for Warhammer, and he wrote some little chapter intro pieces for us. So for me, I should say, and that was the first book, 43 AD, and that's on there now as the first thing I've published. But it did get me going. It got me thinking about the possibilities and the Traveller possibilities when the Mongoose license turned up, and I thought, well, this is it. This is where I can start writing what I've loved for my entire life, Traveller, because I have, like I said, I think there are so many things you could do with Traveller as a toolkit. And I thought this was my opportunity. So between the Mongoose Traveller license, the OGL, and DriveThru popping up, that's when it really all started. I switched quite quickly to Cepheus Engine and to Traveller, and that's dominated really ever since. But occasionally I do write another book or another game that's not really Traveller rated at all. But they do dominate, I think.
How long did it take to put together that first publication?
Well, it was on and off. I actually was commissioned for it by somebody. I played a game with somebody lives about 2 hours drive away, and he said, "Could you write the game for me? I want to commission it." And so he sourced all the artists and everything. I did all the game, the setting, the rules. And between us, it sort of came to fruition. But for one reason or another, he had to sort of drop out of the project, and I took it on and published it on my own.
So it was a group effort. You had some other people on your development team?
There were not for mechanics or plot, but for production, for real production. Yeah, real production. So that was it was layout and cover, and it was the intro fiction and the rear cover art and the interior art, all of that was a team effort. Yeah.
And let's see, so what part of content creation do you like the most? Is it making maps or modules or rules or writing fiction or any of those aspects? What's your favorite? if you could spend all your time doing that, what would it be?
Yeah. No. Well, see, my background really is all in simulation kind of things. So the reenactment and the sort of the role playing. I do a lot of historical. Well, I do a lot of flight simulation as well. I built a replica aircraft cockpit down to the tiniest detail using maps and everything. So the simulation, recreating something exactly like real life, you'd think that it would be sort of rules that work historically perfectly, but it's no. It's settings really. It's settings, and they don't have to be historically accurate or realistic. They can have fantasy aspects. It's creating a settings that is what I love. Settings with possibilities, not just some grand what they used to call it a fantasy heartbreaker setting. It's sort of D&D with the serial numbers rubbed off. I think there are so many things you could do as a role playing group out there. So many settings and settings merged and tweaked and twisted that I love. I sit there thinking. I've got a notebook that I sit outside in the sun, and I sit there and I'll fill it full of ideas, and I'll flesh some ideas out, and I'll throw some ideas away. But that's what gets me going, is ideas for role playing groups, setting ideas really, not rules. They're all a bit of an afterthought, to be honest. It's the what are the characters going to do in this cool new setting? What are they going to do that they can't do anywhere else? And that's what gets me going really.
I looked through your product catalog on DriveThruRPG, and you've got like 45 products in there. That's a lot. So that kind of gets back to like, how are you so prolific? Like, where do you find inspiration? You said you carry a notebook around with you, and I guess you jot down ideas as you come up with them, and then go from there. Or
it's I don't know. Yeah, sorry.
Give us a peek into your process.
Well, I have behind me. I have a shelf, and there must be, I don't know, 20 notebooks on there. They're about half size, quite thick, and I've kept. It's about one every 10 months I get through, and they're all stacked up there with ideas going way back 20 years. I always have one on the go, and I take it with me when I'm out and away. And things go in there. Yeah. See, I work in a school, but I only work 3 days a week. It used to be sort of 4 days, and I have the Easter holidays, Christmas holidays, I have the summer holidays. So I am lucky that I have free time, so I can plan. Right, in the Easter, I'm going to work on this project, and I can work through 2 weeks solidly, and I can get a lot done. And then I'm back to school, but then I don't work a full 5 day week. So again, the weekends and the evenings, I can produce a lot of work. And so people say, you're right, you keep churning it out, churning books out. But which is a bit of I don't know, it's not a great way of putting it, but I do work to a schedule. And again, it's something that I learned when I used to write for publishers for the history books back in the sort of 90s and the early part of the 2000s, when there was a deadline and I have to finish the deadline and I have to get everything sorted and check my sources, and I have to source illustrations or draw my own illustrations and maps for the books. And so I had to be very, 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 very organized and determined. And I always had a writing calendar. So there's the deadline. There's all the weeks. This is how many weeks I've got. In the first 2 weeks, I'll do this chapter. The second 2 weeks, I'll do that chapter. And I used to colour each of these off as I do them. So I was really, really, really regimented. And I'll just keep that. It's just a writing habit I have now, is to be regimented, to start in a certain way, to go through, and to finish at a certain date. It's just our my working practice, really.
Mm-hmm. You're inspiring me to stay on a schedule.
Sorry.
I wrote a computer book. It's like a 200-page computer book, and it took a while because I was just hacking away at it little by little, and I didn't really have a structured way of doing it because it was my first book, and I didn't know really what I was doing, and I knew the content well, but I didn't know how to. And I worked in publications, doing desktop publication, but I never produced something like that myself. And I found that I had to set time aside every day for 2 hours, and I would work and work and work and make sure that I stayed disciplined until it was finished.
Did you finished?
And I finished it, yeah, and it was the proudest moment of my life when I ordered that. The author's copy came in the mail.
Yeah,
Amazing.
it is fantastic, isn't it? I mean, people said to me when I was writing the history books, because it takes a year. It takes a year and a half to write the book. It's about 8 months of research, detailed research, putting it down on paper, and then another 8 months to write the thing. People say, well, how do you find the time? And I thought, I don't find the time. I have to sacrifice the time.
Yep.
I don't get time for it from somewhere else. I have to drop things, So I don't watch TV really much anymore. Well, I never have really. That's one that's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's find time with the family.
It's about priorities, right?
It is, yeah. What can I sacrifice? That's what I'm going to sacrifice, and then I'm going to do. I usually have about 2 or 3 hours. I think it's a minimum. If I'm going to do some proper writing, it's got to be. I need a 3-hour window, because you've got to work up steam and
you got to get into the flow.
Yeah, so it's no good 10 minutes, 20 or half an hour, even an hour really. Sometimes it's got to be a good 3-hour session. So you've got to find that time and then just try and stick to it. Yeah, it's hard. If you haven't got the time, it's hard to decide what to sacrifice, really.
Yep.
Like I said, I am really lucky that I have this free time. I have, because I work in a school and I do get school holidays, and that's a big boost to me, really.
That is fortunate. That's good. So tell us, what have you been up to this past year? Before I get into that, I was going to ask, do you have a gaming group that you play with, or what's the gaming support in your local area? Do you guys have a hobby shop that sells games?
Locally, there's nothing. There was a game shop about 10 years ago, mainly Warhammer and stuff like that. They did a tiny bit of role playing, but they were all so much younger than me. I didn't go in. So now that I've finished role playing with my teenage sons, they've grown. They're in their early 20s now. I've lost my group really with them. So what I've done is I've switched my focus onto thinking about writing solo products, because I've written over the last 20 years. I used to write mini solo games for Traveller. So a trading game, it's set up for that really. So I wrote an entire little mini game on creating characters and jetting around the universe, being traders. And another one then on what if you were a Navy patrol cruiser with a crew, and the whole premise is you're jetting around and you're checking all the systems for pirate activity, enemy activity, and the whole thing is solo, the entire thing, all the character interactions, everything. And I did a few of these little mini games, and then I brought them all together one year into one book called Solo. So because I have no group anymore, I test out a lot of these ideas using these solo systems that I've created. And it's been I must have struck a nerve really with maybe Traveller players over 50, because that was my best-selling book by far. It is just called Solo, and it's a compilation of those Traveller solo games. There's the trading game, the Navy Patrol game. There's just a Traveller individuals looking for patrons game. What else? Explorers game. You've got a blank subsector map, and you've got a starship and a crew, and off you go. And it's all randomized, and there's tables to follow, and there's crew interactions and dramas, and all kinds of things can happen. And it's exciting. To me, it was an exciting game to play just at a weekend. So all these things were put together, and that's the kind of gaming that I do now. But it means that I have a solo brain now. I have a solitaire player's game kind of brain, and I do bring out solo aspects to the games as well now. And they've been popular. They've been popular, and I get that maybe telling me a bit about the age of Traveller players. I'm not quite sure, because it is hard to find groups these days, particularly for Traveller, I would have thought.
Yeah. I've been trying to cultivate local groups and other groups online and stuff to kind of keep the idea of Traveller out there in the world and try to bring more people in. I mean, I don't know why people who I've known for years, who've been gaming for years, and I tell them about Traveller, and they're like, "What? I never heard of that." I'm like, how could you have not heard of that? Yeah, you're like in the gaming guilds and stuff, weird. But yeah. So do you go to any conventions?
Oh, no, not really. No. I am a quiet, shy person. So it's not that kind of thing. I mean, we do have them in Britain, but no, not really. No.
You know that
It's neither.
thinking about your solo product, a lot of folks who I've spoken to through all these forums and things, they don't have a local group, and they either don't, maybe they live in a rural area and they don't have internet, so they don't play by remote, or for some reason they don't want to do that. Maybe that's the there's a big market for that solo thing, I think.
Yeah,
So
I think so.
that might explain the
It
success. I mean, plus your
it
skills,
was.
of course.
It was a surprise. I must admit, it was a big surprise. Yeah.
So, tell us about your most recent product, or
Well, I said that was a big subject, but really, what I wanted to do with the Traveller license, and now the Traveller license was revoked by Mongoose, but Cepheus Engine was created to fill the gap, which is so Cepheus Engine is essentially a rebranded version of Traveller, an open toolbox, really. I thought, well, this is my chance to do the setting of my dreams, which is the Alien setting. From my first games, everything looked like Alien. Everything, or the Starship looked like Starships in Alien, Nostromo. The crew dressed like all the characters dressed like characters from Blade Runner and Alien, and films like Outland. So this is my chance. I'm gonna do it. And I got a friend on board, an artist friend who's done a lot of work for my books, Ian Stead, who is, like me, probably one of Britain's greatest Alien fans. We have all the books ever published. We have deck plan books and history of Alien books and how Alien was made books and everything you can imagine. So we have all the resources. Of course, I have to do the trick of filing off the serial numbers here. I have to make an alternate. It's like Alien, it's like Outland, it's like Blade Runner, but it doesn't cover any trademarks or copyrights. It's my own universe, but it feels like all that, and that's what I did. And it was called Hostile. And again, that took me by surprise. I thought, is anyone going to be interested in this? Is anyone going to want to buy this or play it? But it's been a fantastic hit for me. I mean, this is the book that really I've kept writing for since it came out. It's just I have so much interest in this. So many people are inspired by Traveller by it and play it and want more, and they send me ideas for new books, and it's fantastic. It really is. It's really been big. It is Zozer Games is really Hostile. It's fantastic.
That's awesome. Did you ever expect? Well, clearly, I mean, it sounds like you didn't expect to have such a success. You were maybe second guessing yourself a little there at the beginning.
Oh well, I've written other books, and I've thought, this is great. This is going to be great. This is dinosaurs. You can go back in time to study dinosaurs. It's your college students and your time machine. You can go back, and I bought a cover. I got a cover commissioned, and I did my own artwork for that. I really invested a lot of time in it, and it sold 3 copies. So,
oh no!
So you have no idea. It goes out, and you have no idea. It could sell 3 copies, or 300 in the first week. You have no idea. So every time I bring out a book, it's always a gamble, because you've got and you daren't invest too much money. I mean, I think some publishers are so brave. I don't know. They're so brave. The production qualities are fantastic. The level of the commissioned illustrations all the way through the book. I'm thinking, wow, that must have cost you a fortune. I hope you're going to get it back.
Yeah.
I'm never sure. And so to find Hostile was such a massive hit, and I expected, because when you look at you're waiting for the first review to come out. What's the first review going to be? And it was like glowing. And then the second one, and that was thank God for that. Such a relief, because it could quite easily be the opposite. You could spend a year writing it, and it sells just a handful of copies, and you're deflated, and you give it all up, really.
Tell us Tell us some of the key features or benefits of Hostel. Like, what, how does it differ from other products, or what are you especially proud of that's in there?
I wanted to not just make it feel like it's like Alien or Blade Runner and Outland and Silent Running and all these other films. It had to really, I had to get down to the core of it. I had to make this the book. So it's all about its spaces, because it didn't start with a title. We start with the idea of this, and well, why? There are no, you never see any yachts or pleasure cruises. There's no pleasure planets. Most planets are really bad. They're terrible places. Every planet is a trap. There's either something in the planet, it's either the ecosystem or a creature, a predator, or there's something in the climate, or there's something hiding there that's going to really, really make the colonists suffer or wipe them out. On every planet's like this. The universe is a bit of a sick joke, really. You can get out there, but it's a terrible, hostile place. And so, hostile, that sticks, right? So it's a hostile universe, and it's a place no one wants to go. So the only people who go there are the oil drillers and the loggers and the miners and the ore refiners and the Starship cargo operators and the corporate managers who run the mines. It's a place where you work. So it's a bit like, I suppose, Alaska or northern Canada. It's a place no one wants to go. They only go because they're being paid big wages, and that's the world the characters are thrown into. Really, they're blue collar working men and women thrown out there trying to make a living, send the wages back home, and it's tough. Everything's trying to kill them, and so you can move beyond the alien. The tropes and the vicious alien predator, because there's everything out there. There's the creatures under the ground, the burrowing creatures that you're going to find one day. There's spores locked in ice that when you set up your colony, the ice is going to melt, the spores will come out, and then heaven knows what's going to happen. Just watch one of the worst horror movies you can think of, and anything's possible, and it's all out there. It's just waiting for you. You're just going to do your job. And basically, role-playing, the jobs you do, it's just an excuse to be out there. It's an excuse to be out in the middle of nowhere without any backup, without any help, without the tools you really need, without any weaponry. And then you're going to face something terrifying. And there's no one there but you and skills on your character sheet and your ingenuity to sort it out. And that's what it was all about, really. So it wasn't really an Alien rip-off. It was what makes Alien good. And then let's make a game about that. And then we call it Hostile, and like I said, it's been quite a hit. So I've been quite surprised.
Wow, that sounds really, really good. Actually, I've never heard it explained like that. That's super interesting to me, actually. I'm gonna have to check it out. So, what are your? Do you have any other popular titles in your product line?
Well, that was the main one, and we've written books to follow on from that, some adventures and ship books, and a couple of sort of there's a solo game based on that, and various other things. But again, talking with Ian, he's a big firearms fan, and he was talking about, wouldn't it be great to do a firearms book? And I worked on a book with him and Michael Johnson. It was the Cepheus Engine's vehicle design guide, which is fantastic. You can make anything in this, and the work that he put into that and the designs we made, absolutely brilliant. It's a really good traveller vehicle book. And I think Ian said, wouldn't it be great to do modern day tanks and APCs, and you could do all that with this. And I thought, well, there's an idea. So I spent about a year doing that, designing vehicles using that system, weaponry using the Cepheus Engine system, and then I used, and then I designed like a sort of modern day military plot creation system so you're not just walking around and randomly finding things. There's a definite plot and there's a definite scenario built into each mission. And so I spent a year doing that. And again, you never know if it's going to sell well or not. No idea. So, but that was a big surprise. It was very popular. And I think maybe a little bit of Twilight 2000 in there, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
But it covers everything, all modern firearms, all modern tanks and APCs with a vehicle weapon system built in. That's done really well. I'm very, very pleased with that. So I'll probably be following that up with a few supplements as well. People keep sending me ideas for modern fictional wars scenarios. So we did a Baltic War one where Russia invades the Baltics, and the characters are trapped there and have to fend for themselves. But people send us ideas for other ones as well. A war, a early 60s invasion of Cuba war, all kinds of things. A rerun of the Falklands War. So there's a lot of interest, and it's just choosing what books to write that will reflect the game system and do it justice, really. So we do have a follow-up. Ian and myself are working on a World War I trench raiding game using the same rules, where you're fighting trench to trench against the enemy at night. Each mission is something. There's always a plot where you've got to go in there. You don't know what you're going to find. You don't know what to expect. But each mission, there's a different objective. It could be capturing an enemy prisoner. It could be destroying something. So that's what we're working on at the moment as a template to see if we can do more of these follow-up books, really.
Do you have a solid production plan? I mean, you're working on anything on a specific title right now that you plan to, like your next project that's going to come out? People should look for.
There's always something. What am I working on at the moment? Well, again, it's more modern war things, really.
Right.
But again, hostile. There's more hostile stuff coming out as well. People have sent me so many ideas, and I have ideas to work through to fill the gaps in the toolkit approach to Traveller, that I want to sort of fill these in, and so you can use hostile for all kinds. You could use it for a space trading game, or for a mining game, or for an exploration game in that system and in that setting. So we're following these up. So there's nothing new as a new game as such, but I'll definitely be following these up with further products and ideas and expansions, really.
Cool. And so if do you have your own website or social media page? How can people find you and your products?
Yeah, well, Zozer Games is the word Zozer. It was the only when I got my first internet webmail account. I tried everything, every word I could possibly think of. I could not find a word that had not been taken previously. So I thought, well, I'm an ancient historian. Let's think. Some ancient pharaohs, all kinds of pharaohs' names, all been taken. But the only one I could find was a Victorian spelling of the pharaoh Joser, which was Zozer. So Zozer Games, that's where the name came from. And if you type that into the internet, it's such a rare name, it comes straight up. So we have a website, and every product is on there. And there's also all my history books are on there as well, going right back into the 90s. I'm also on Facebook as Zozer Games. We're on Lulu. All the products are on Lulu's print on demand as well. Everything that I've published on DriveThru goes onto Lulu as well. So it's all. And please get in contact if you're interested, or if you want to know more about any of these. There's a contact page on the website. Please get in touch. Really.
Did you say it was Zozer.com or ZozerGames.com?
The website is the website is Paul Elliott Books.
Oh,
that would be / Zozer Games.
Okay. All right.
Because it covers all my writing as well,
right?
And some historical research. And Zozer Games is one aspect of the website there.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. That's the end of our interview. Thanks a lot, Paul, for sitting and
right.
telling us about. I mean, your passion for the game and for Traveller, and your creativity really comes through.
Thank you for letting me talk. It's I can't believe the time's flown. It's been brilliant. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks so much. And well, I'm your host, Frank Succardi, also known as CyborgPrime, and I've been talking today with Mr. Paul Elliott of Zozer Games. Pick up copies of his books, Hostile and Solo, at DriveThruRPG or Lulu.com. And that's LULU.com. Paul, thanks again for participating in our Mayday Traveller Day event. And thank you, dear listener, for joining us today. That's all for now, travelers. Until next time, happy traveling.